Aloha from Colorado, that is. I'm not in full tropical attire and didn't intend to be, but I was in a pretty good mood today, and the weather here was wonderful. And I love the aloha spirit every time it crosses my mind, and it crosses my mind quite frequently because, frankly, I left a big piece of my heart in the island of Kauai. I've been there, I believe, 7 times, and it's place that just the energy there just hit me like a ton of feathers. Let's put it that way. By that I mean it wasn't oppressive, but it was totally unmistakable. And I have a feeling of deja vu, and I'm there so strongly that I am really convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that I've lived at least one lifetime and probably more in Kauai. This is the second video on this channel, and hopefully those of you who are watching also saw the welcome video, the first one on this channel, and it says a little bit about me. And if you didn't see it, here's a recap of that, boiled down to about 9 seconds. Actually, I hope you saw it, and if you didn't find, hopefully this video will be entertaining enough that you don't really care after you watch it what I said in the last one. I'll give it my best shot. The book that you saw in passing there in that little 9-second clip was offthehook.com. Off the Hook, Escaping Toxic Ideology, the book about my journey through life. And I'm going to discuss it real briefly in terms of about 5 different phases. Call it capture, immersion, escape, rethinking, and healing. The capture phase refers to the fact that at age 8, I was impelled by fear, to be honest, it was terror, to publicly accept my parents' toxic religion publicly. And I had to do it because my 4-year-old sister had already done that, and I was actually told that if Jesus came back and my parents went up to meet him in the sky, like the rapture is talked about in evangelical circles, they would leave me behind. I would be abandoned. So it was fear that captured me into the clutches of that toxic religion. And to be honest, I want to make sure it's understood that it wasn't just the church. We attended an independent Baptist church, and I honestly feel like if we had gone to church once on Sunday, like a lot of people do, and lived our lives through the week like most people do, it wouldn't have got such a hold on me. But it wasn't like that. My mother actually created a cult of 4 people in the family by just drilling into our heads all the time what she believed the Bible said, what she believed the rules are, what she believed everything was all about. And the most toxic part of that, which I'll call the second phase of immersion, and I wasn't referring to baptism, even though that was a part of it too. By immersion, I mean that, like I said, 24/7, it was drilled into our heads what my mother believed the Bible taught and how that applied to our lives. All the rules, all the ways that we were to live differently from everybody else. The thing that was so damaging to my psyche, psychologically and spiritually, is that I was basically taught that we born-again Christians are not of this world. Our reward will be in heaven, and our whole purpose of living in this world, in this life, is to serve the Lord and stay out of trouble and make it through, and then when we get to heaven, everything will be great. So I was immersed in that teaching 24/7, and it really had a profound effect on my social life because I didn't learn how to be friends with or associate with anybody else other than other church members. And took me a lifetime to get over that. the phase that I call escape is the main theme of the book. Escaping Toxic Ideology is the subtitle. I finally got away. I figured the beliefs didn't make sense to me anymore. The practices that I was being told were the way I was supposed to live didn't seem to make sense either. And it took me a long time, but I finally got away from that. The fourth theme of the whole process was rethinking. It took me decades, actually, to realize that my belief systems that had been drilled into me didn't fit, and I had to rethink them. I had to form a whole new belief system, a whole new spirituality, a whole new way of living. And the fifth aspect of healing is a lot of the latter part of that process. And the process culminated totally in the writing of the book, which was in itself an incredibly therapeutic process. It was worth years and years and years of therapy, which I did by myself in the process of writing the book, which took me a couple of years, examining in depth what the damage was, what the abuse was, what the hurt was, what the toxic beliefs were, what I had to rethink, what I had to get rid of, how I had to heal that. And it was an incredible process. It took 50 some years, I guess, of my life, from the time I was 8 and went forward in church to the time I finished writing the book. And that part of my life I can put in parentheses and say, it's in the past, it's over. I'm done, I can go on with my life. Which doesn't mean I'll never mention it again, because the whole point of writing the book was to make sure that I could help other people that were going through a similar process. But the good news, the really, really good news, is that my life didn't start at 8. It started at the beginning. And I lived on a farm, and for particularly the first 6 years of my life, before I started school, I had an incredible amount of free time to roam around the farm. It was my grandfather's farm, and my family lived for the first 13 years of my life upstairs in my grandparents' house. And I had an incredible amount of time to go play in the barn, play in the outbuildings, roam the fields, run around and lie on the grass in the edge of the fields. And I remember so clearly that back then I would lie on the grass, look at the clouds, think my own thoughts, and be amazed at the wonder and awesomeness of life and of the world around me, the plants, the bugs that landed on me perhaps during that time. And it was just an awesome feeling of spiritual connection and oneness that fortunately I remember very well. And I can connect the dots between where I am now and that. It's where I started. I am connecting where I am now to where I started. I was born that way, to quote Lady Gaga. And I just am in awe as I think of it. What a wonderful realization it is that I started out being aware of my spirituality and aware of the awesomeness of the universe and the magnitude of the universe, and feeling like there's so much more to it than meets the eye. I felt it. I felt it around me. And I can say now, as a spiritual person at this point in my life, that those of us on a spiritual path know that the universe is vast. It's unfathomable in all of its dimensions and all of its energies and beings that are far beyond what we can see with the eye. And so I would like to ask my viewers a question, and please give me your comments in below this video. If you have such a memory of being a spiritual person at the outset and then perhaps being indoctrinated with all kinds of things that other people thought you should believe, and then coming out of that and then getting back on a spiritual path and thinking your own thoughts and being your own person. Do you have that memory also? Can you connect those dots in that same way? If so, let me know. I really like to know. And now I'm going to take a pause and change the scenery. Okay, the point of this change of scenery is to introduce you to my companion parrot, Michoud. Michoud is an African Myers parrot. She's been my companion for about a dozen years or so. She's very loving, especially of people. We have her on a separate floor of the house from the other parrots that we foster because she really doesn't like other birds very much, but she loves people. And she lets me cuddle with her. I talk to her every night. She was on my shoulder. Give her a pistachio once in a while. Here, put it in my pocket. Let me give you a pistachio, okay? That's how we communicate with little clicks. She doesn't talk like some of the other parrots do. Well, I put these pistachios clear down in that pocket. There you go. Don't you want one? Yeah. Birds are really messy eaters. They probably swallow a tiny fraction of what they chew up. Most of it goes on the floor or my shirt or the table or wherever she happens to be. But Michoud is a lovely bird. And by the way, parrots are not domesticated species like dogs are. They're wild. They can be tamed. Michoud is definitely tamed. But there's a level of trust between me and Michoud that is quite remarkable. She lets me just pick her up. She can be on the table and I just pick her up like this and she lets me do it. But it's an incredible amount of trust and an incredible amount of connection that we have. Are you a spiritual being? Of course you're a spiritual being. Is she psychic? Of course she's psychic. When I get her out in the evening and have her on my shoulder and we talk to her for a while, and we have a really good quality time. But sometimes it's late, and I know that I need to get to bed pretty soon, and therefore she needs to get to bed pretty soon. She has a separate sleep cage from the one she stays in during the day, a different room. And when I start thinking about that's what I'm going to do, she picks that thought up immediately. Sometimes she'll just fly to another place in the room to get away from me at the moment. But she knows, she very definitely knows when I'm going to do something that she doesn't like. She doesn't always like to cooperate with what I want her to do. And it's not like she's never bitten me. Sometimes she has, not usually enough to draw blood, but she has a mind of her own. In other words, that's I guess what I wanted to say there. And when I thought about having Michoud on camera and the fact that the theme of this video is connecting the dots, is there some way I could tie in a connection with the fact that I have a bird with me on camera? And almost immediately, the first thought that came to my mind is about a time not long before I met my wife, Linda. I had moved to Colorado Springs from Atlanta with my former wife, now ex-wife. I came out here for a really good paying job, and it was. I had what I thought was a good marriage. We were good friends. I was driving a red Porsche to work. Life was great, and I don't think I've ever been anywhere near as comfortable in life as I was during that period of my life. But within a very short period of time, I lost my job, political reasons that to me seemed like trying to tell truth to power. That's how it felt to me. And my wife left me, and I almost lost the house. I was about to be foreclosed on. Fortunately, I sold it at the last second. My dog died, and I had just about lost everything that was important to me. I've been a fan of Chris Christopherson's music. He does some dark stuff every once in a while, but I've always admired his way with words and his lyrics. And when I listened to Me and Bobby McGee, which of course most people associate with Janis Joplin because she recorded it, made it popular, but he wrote it. The line in there, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. I've pondered that thought many times. Is that really profound, or is that just a bunch of BS? And looking back, I realized that at that time in my life, it was incredibly profound because I'd lost everything, that was important to me. There was nothing left to lose. And in fact, looking back, I hadn't been that free since I was 8 years old. It was a very short time after that I met Linda, and my life exploded spiritually into all kinds of growth and new ways of looking at things and new partnership and spirituality that Linda and I have. But that time in my life when I was in that state of not knowing where I was going to go, I was sitting in my bedroom looking out the window, and a little bird flew up near the window. It wasn't a hummingbird, so I doubt that it was hovering, and there was no place for it to land there. It was just momentarily that bird was outside the window looking at me, or felt like it was looking at me. And just for a moment, my consciousness seemed to leave my body and go to the bird. And it was like I was in the bird looking at me for just a split second. But it was long enough to change my life in a way. I realized that bird is not only a spiritual being, but that bird and I are connected in a way that I wouldn't have thought was possible. And so it's just another way of connecting the dots with spiritual beings of all sorts, spiritual beings in dog suits, bird suits, as well as human suits. We're all connected, we're all one. And again, if anybody viewing this has any such memory that they'd like to share, I would really appreciate it. Leave it in the comments below. And Mishu, do you have anything you'd like to share with the people out there? Do you? Oh, he's a lovely bird. You want to go over toward the camera again? See? There's the people looking at you. And loving you. You're loving you. Okay. We'll go back to the regular format. Okay, we're back. And another way that I want to connect the dots in this video is to ponder just a little bit about what I felt when I finished writing my book and finished the incredible therapeutic experience that was for me. And realizing that in spite of the fact that I had changed so much in what I believed, how I thought, how I looked at the universe, how I labeled myself, really, my core being hadn't changed that much. I'm still the same person I always was. My value system hasn't changed. I've always, in the midst of my toxic upbringing and toxic childhood and teenagerhood, all through the whole thing, I valued honesty and integrity and kindness and compassion and doing the right thing to the best of my ability. And I'm basically the same person I always was. And I have realized that I have not thrown out some of the concepts I had back then with the bathwater, so to speak. I've just reframed them. I've looked at them in a new way. God, for example. I went from being taught that God was a being up there somewhere outside of the world and they controlled our lives and loved us, but would condemn us to hell if we didn't believe the right thing and all that stuff, to thinking that I didn't even want to talk about God. I would, I didn't call myself an atheist, but I was real close in the way I looked at things, to eventually reframing God and being very comfortable with using the term God, because I'm not talking about a being anymore. I'm talking about a creative source, a creative energy that I believe resides within all of us. And in fact, we have a divine spark within our being, but I'm quite comfortable calling that God, totally redefined in my mind. Same goes for a lot of other things. My mother taught me that Jesus was such a precious person. Wasn't in the name Jesus the most wonderful name you ever heard? And it almost made me gag because I'm a heterosexual guy. I couldn't think of some other guy as being that dear and wonderful. And I never could quite get my mother's concept of Jesus in the first place. But I went to thinking maybe he didn't even ever exist historically, to understanding finally that Jesus is the Jesus in the Bible may or may not be an accurate depiction of a historical person, but the energy of the Christ that is in the teachings that we feel sometimes when we feel the presence of ascended masters, including the Jesus energy. I've embraced that as part of the spiritual environment I live in. So that's just two examples of the reframing that I've done, and the feeling that, yeah, and in a way I've come full circle. I can connect the dots between who I have been all along and who I am now. The understanding that I'm the same person, and that the experience that I've gone through was just a wonderful experience that I chose. I am so grateful that I've had this experience. I couldn't possibly be the person I am now without having gone through it. I chose it. So again, if you have any comments about some similar feeling or understanding in your own life, how you've been able to connect the dots in a similar way, I'd love to know that too. And leave me a comment, if you would, please, in the comments below. The information also about my book, Off the Hook, is in a website that's called offthehook.website. I'll put that on the screen here for a moment, but that information is also in the description of this video. This is Debbie of Freebird Spirit. Debbie is a very talented tarot reader. I mentioned in the last video that she's part of a small group of like-minded people that live in Colorado Springs that get together for sushi once a month. And the more I've gotten to know Debbie, the more impressed I am with the multitude of talents she has. She's a psychologist. She does hypnosis. I think it's fair to say hypnotherapy. She does a lot of collaborations with other psychics that are also guests on her channel. Debbie has created a deck of cards that is available on her channel that I want to show you. Deck of cards that's titled Freebird Spirit. And I've chosen 3 that I want to show you that meant something to me as I looked at the deck. The earth is often called our mother because it nurtures us in every possible way physically. This card is an example of the affirmations that are also in the deck. I'm enough. This is one of the Lenormand cards. Birds. It's about talking, communication. It's about partnership. If you haven't subscribed to Debbie's channel, Freebird Spirit, please take a look at it. Like, subscribe to her too. So, thanks for watching. Please like, share, give me a thumbs up. I'll see you next time. That any personal opinions or beliefs that are expressed on this channel are presented strictly as examples, often to show the contrast to childhood teachings. I will never attempt to get you off your path onto mine.